Welcome to the Occult Rejects. Tonight we got a returning guest, a fan favorite, somebody that I've been asked actually to have on multiple times, and even people on the show like, yo, you got to get that dude on again. We got Ernie from Virginia's for Conspiracy Lovers, but before we get to him, we're going to introduce the other rejects with us tonight. And we got Julia returning. What is up again, Julia? How are you? It's great to see you back on again.
Thanks for having me, Nick. Yeah, I think we talked about the Knights of the Golden Circle or something like that last time. Really super interesting topic, and I can't wait to get into Shakespeare tonight. It's going to be awesome. Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. I actually was like, this would be great for you, I thought. And Ethan, my man, sir, what is going on? How are you?
Nick, Julia, great to see you as always. Thank you, Nick, for putting everything together. Ernie, it's great to meet you. I'm excited about this. A lot of conspiratorial threads connect to Shakespeare, so it's a great topic of discussion. Ethan Indigo Smith, on all the social media, I can be easily found, and I appreciate people reaching out and communicating. And I have written a few books and write articles frequently. I got a Tai Chi article coming out soon, if I can get it together, and a little video too, sharing some instructions. So yeah, appreciate everybody.
Cool. Nice. Make it happen. Yeah, before we introduce Ernie, it's probably more for the people who might catch this live because this episode will drop on audio after the fact. But if you happen to be in Arizona or more, I guess like kind of by Scottsdale or Phoenix, Arizona, me and Headless will be out there December 5th to the 7th. We were blessed with free tickets to go to this quest for ancient civilizations. So I figured, fuck it, why not go? It's a 3-day event over in Scottsdale, Arizona. Not saying to go check it out, that to come to the event, but if you're in the area and you actually want to like meet up or anything, I'm sure we'll be around after the fact. Or if this stuff interests you, definitely check it out. Maybe I'll include like the link for it in the show after the fact, but. Yeah, anybody in the area, hit us up. Those 3 days will be around. Come out, get you fucking stoned, chill. So yeah, just put that out there. Now, Ernie, sir, please, for the people who have not had the pleasure of hearing you before, well, first off, I would like to remind that he has done a few shows already. Go check them out. Definitely rabbit holes. Actually, we were making jokes earlier saying that with Julia and him here, we should be talking about rabbit holes and beeholes. So, yeah. So please, Ernie, let everybody know what your deal is and who you are. So for the new people.
Yeah. So Ernie Lebrecq. I'm me and a buddy do Virginia's for Conspiracy Lovers podcast anywhere where podcasts are found. We got a YouTube page, same name. I did finally change it to where everything's all the same name, so you can actually find us, but on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Just a conspiracy nerd that stumbled onto some of my own like kind of personal research and decided to start doing a podcast that's kind of conspiracy Virginia based, because the more I'm from Virginia and the more and more I looked into it, it's like all roads led back to Virginia with all this crap. So that's where we're at. We've been on hiatus for a couple of months because I'm moving this studio out of this closet into the garage. So but we'll be back, and we've got some bangers like in the hole. So but yeah, check us out.
Good for you, man. Make that happen. Now, the first show, the last show that you did was, the Knights of the Golden Circle, the Golden Horseshoe, or some shit like maybe that came.
We did the Golden Horseshoe, yeah, which was the weird expedition trying to find a pass through the Blue Ridge Mountains by Governor Alexander Spotswood. And my whole life, we've all heard the story, and it's a nothing story that you hear. There's a little sign in the Blue Ridge Mountains, little obelisk monument to it. And then of course, like anything in Virginia history, the deeper you get into it, the more it seems weird. And in my personal opinion, by the end of it, it looked like a Masonic, like maybe the first Masonic ritual to take place, like kind of officially. It happened like 1714, just 3 years before like Masonry's public, like kind of coming out party. And we talked about it. It was just a ton of aristocrats on this expedition across a mountain to supposedly find the pass through the mountains, but they'd already found the pass, and like the guides that took them were the rangers were the ones who had already found the pass through the Blue Ridge. And then they get over the Blue Ridge and they name the Shenandoah River the Euphrates, and then they cross the Euphrates and have this big like party. And just all the different people on the expedition were just super glowy, Jacobites and Huguenots and Masons and first kind of Virginia families. And then there was this whole presenting of these guys when they came back with these golden horseshoe pins that had jewels in them, and different jewels for different guys. And the only real account that we have of it is, and I can't remember the guy's name now, but that guy was crazy interesting Huguenot from Ireland who ended up marrying a woman named Mary Magdalene. And it's go back and listen to that one. It's weird, man. It's
I remember there was a lot to it. Like I felt like there was like a lot of different things.
Wait do you hear this nonsense? I'm gonna
listen
spit at you.
All right, so I guess unless anybody's got something to ask him or whatever, I guess maybe you can just start it off here, sir.
All right.
Did you even come across this, if you don't mind me asking? Was this like something you stumbled across and you're like, oh, there's something here, or I don't.
Yeah, so I like I've said before, my personal research is based on Williamsburg. I was born and raised in good old colonial Williamsburg, in the shadow of campus of William and Mary. And about 7 or 8 years ago, I kind of stumbled into, I had probably watched National Treasure or the Da Vinci Code too recently, and happened to be down buying a gift for somebody in colonial Williamsburg and noticed the two oldest roads in the country, Jamestown Road and Richmond Road, which kind of create the historic campus. They come to a point like a triangle, and I think that I saw that and I was like, oh, I got to look at this on Google Earth. And then that opened up a ton of stuff, to the point where I took my research to the director of the historic campus, and they were kind of blown away. And I started, digging into it, and it gets weirder and weirder. And thinking that I was kind of too dumb to have figured this stuff out myself. And so I just kept trying to prove myself wrong. And the more I dug to prove myself wrong, the more crap I found. And then I started to find some things that were absolutely undeniable. Like I shared on one of the episodes with you guys, the encode of the Great Pyramid of Giza on that triangle of land that also points directly to the Great Pyramid of Giza and is the exact same. So there's all that. So all my personal research does kind of, I say it revolves around Williamsburg and Virginia, but because of that, that means it revolves around everything. The beginning of Masonry in this country, Francis Bacon. And then from there, it just keeps going back and back and back and forward and forward and forward. And so for this one, because I lived in Williamsburg and my mom is a big Shakespeare nerd herself, I've been getting dragged to 2 Shakespeare plays a year since I was 9 years old. So I've seen everything that the entire Shakespeare canon in every format you could think of. William and Mary has one of the largest Shakespeare festivals in the country, the Virginia Shakespeare Festival, at William and Mary, and put together in the Phi Beta Kappa Hall. So I've seen everything from Taming of the Shrew, adapted to 1920s like Cuban Cuban beach style to, you know, like traditional plays and everything in between. And when I was 9, I couldn't, you know, I had no idea what they were saying or what was happening. But the older I got, I kind of learned to speak the language of Shakespeare and really kind of fell in love with the plays. And so really one of the first things that got me into kind of the conspiracy world was the Shakespeare authorship question. And just to skip over because I've got a lot of crap here, but we're in the conspiracy world, so I don't believe that Shakespeare wrote Shakespeare, and we can kind of skip all that. I'm part of the camp that believes Francis Bacon is Shakespeare, and for me a little differently. I'm not a total Baconian. I think it was more Francis Bacon by committee. He had a literary society called the Society of the Helmet, who just so happened to contain, like, all the members were all the different people that people put forward as possible Shakespeare authors. So 17th Earl of Oxford, the Countess of Pembroke, Sir Walter Raleigh, William Strachey, who will play an important role in this research. So all these guys that they've put forward that could be the alternative to who wrote the Shakespeare plays were part of Francis Bacon's literary society called the Society of the Helmet, named after their patron muse Athena, because she wore a helmet and was known to shake her spear her spear of knowledge in the face of the beast of ignorance, right? And then just so happens that a man obsessed with Francis Bacon, a Williamsburg legend, mentor to Thomas Jefferson, is the man who created what I think is the best state flag in the Union. It's the only flag with a booby on it. And that's actually, he was obsessed with Francis Bacon. His name was George Wythe. Like I said, he was Thomas Jefferson's mentor. He was the reason that Thomas Jefferson became obsessed with Francis Bacon his whole life. And that is actually Athena wearing her helmet and holding her spear. That's kind of neither here nor there, but I forgot that was behind me.
I just want to mention real quick, and I mentioned this a lot of times. I'm just using an excuse to mention it again. The woman's nipple hanging out. That in the Knox formula, Crowley's Knox formula, at some point you're supposed to be Isis, like breastfeeding horse, and you will you'll make it look like you're holding a baby and grabbing your nipple. There is a relationship between the nipple and the child. When the child latches its mouth onto the nipple, the mother's pineal gland will tell the child where it is, time, season, where it is, even on the planet, what's up and down, all this.
Wow.
So, I mean, there is actually a very weird, interesting pineal gland to pineal gland conversation going on just from breastfeeding. So,
wow.
Sometimes I wonder if that has anything to do with some occult science symbolism.
I mean, it's got to, even if they didn't know it that deeply. They knew that there was that connection since the beginning of time there. So I said I wasn't going to get into that whole thing, but Shakespeare didn't write Shakespeare. His name wasn't even Shakespeare. His name was Shagspar, and there's no evidence that he was literate or went to school past the 4th grade. The only thing we have of him is his signature on 7 different documents. They're all legal documents, and his will, because he was kind of a douchebag and cheating people out of stuff a lot, and so he's always getting drug into court, and all these signatures are spelled differently and in different handwriting, so that probably points to the fact that whoever the other lawyer was or the judge was the one who signed his name to it. So we don't even know that Shakespeare, or the guy that they attribute Shakespeare to, even was literate. He didn't own a book that we can tell. In his will, he doesn't leave any books, papers. There's never been a letter written to him or from him that anybody's ever found. The guy wasn't Shakespeare. Bacon was Shakespeare. So that being said, I got obsessed with this book here, which is this gigantic tome that I paid a bunch of money for. It's a facsimile of the first folio of Shakespeare, the 1623.
Oh, nice.
that was put together. It's exactly how it came out. In 1623, it's just on new paper, and basically took a historic copy and from one of the museums and photocopied every single page. So it's exactly the way it came out, the very first folio. So I get into Shakespeare. I get into the first folio and some of the weird things that go on with that. Of course, that leads me to Bacon. And then once you get into Bacon, you end up down the road of Bacon created Masonry by way of Rosicrucianism. You find out that the Masons actually claim Shakespeare and Francis Bacon as kind of founding architects, if you will. And then the further you get into Masonry, you start to, if you dig back from Masonry, modern day Masonry, you eventually fall back into the Stuart dynasty. And that leads you back, if you follow the maternal side of that family all the way back, it brings you all the way back to the Merovingians of Dan Brown fame. And really, my overall thesis of my research now is that America was begun as, and Virginia in particular, as a breakaway civilization for the Stuart dynasty. I think it was facilitated and designed by Francis Bacon, and then has been managed and stewarded by the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. Sort of a thinly veiled alternative to the monarchy that they were, but they could see the writing on the wall that their monarchy, their reign as monarchs in England, Scotland, and Ireland wasn't going to last long. The Stuart reign was only about 100 years, and I mean, they were deposed several times, kicked off the throne, brought back in, killed. They ran the gamut, and right at the very beginning of that dynasty, Francis Bacon, working for King James I, the first Stuart monarch, right at the beginning of that, they create the Virginia Company of London and start exploring the New World, Virginia in particular. And I think that was, I really, the more and more I get into this stuff, the more I think that America, maybe still, but definitely its beginnings were kind of a breakaway place for the Stuart kind of ideal and this divine right of kings, Merovingian bloodline idea, which I don't necessarily believe that they have any special bloodline, but like any other monarchy kind of bloodline, I think this Christ bloodline, divine right of kings, was a story that they used, whether they believed it or not, to kind of imbue their dynasty with importance. And I think they saw the writing on the wall and decided the New World was the place to keep that power and that control structure going, and just do it with a different face on it. And I think right then is where you see America come up and Masonry come up at the same time, and the monarchy drop off. But then you look at Scottish Rite Freemasonry, and it is, I'm about to show you, it's Scottish Rite Freemasonry connects Kabbalah, this book right here, the 1611 King James Bible, and am I missing something? And Francis Bacon, all together. So first off, this first folio is structured like an initiatory ladder and not like any of the kind of anthologies of its time. The first folio, the first folio, first book in English history to divide dramatic works into three distinct sections: comedies, histories, and tragedies. But it is identical logic to an initiatory system. in the 3 steps there being purification, advancement, and mastery / sacrifice. Exactly like a degree system, but published nearly a century before the Scottish Rites 33 degree system. So if Masonry borrowed from Shakespeare, how did Shakespeare already arrange his canon? And really not Shakespeare, because he didn't exist, but the people who did arrange the first folio of Shakespeare, how did they arrange it in a multi-stage initiation kind of system? So the sequence of the plays in the folio kind of mirror that ladder of like esoteric order. You've got the Tempest, which is an initiation. I've got a good friend, Robert Frederick. He has a great podcast called The Hidden Life is Best. He just became, on a whim, a Bacon scholar, and now he digs into all the Shakespeare works, and he just picks them apart. And 2-3 hour episodes, each one on a different play, and they're incredible. And so actually what got me onto this particular track was I was doing a podcast with him, and he did the Tempest on my suggestion, because he had done Romeo and Juliet, I think As You Like It, Macbeth, and he pulled all these Masonic principles out of there and really showed how they were, almost undeniably written by a Rosicrucian for that specific purpose. And he was asking which one I thought he should do next, and I was like, The Tempest. And The Tempest is near and dear to my heart, because living in Virginia, not a ton of people know this, but 1607, they sent John Smith and the whole crew over here, and that whole Pocahontas trip happened, right? And but they kept dying. They kept getting murked by the natives and starving and eating each other. And 1608, they send another supply mission over. They eat all that food. They're all dying out again. So then Francis Bacon takes it upon himself and mounts a massive supply mission, which is 9 ships sent from Plymouth, over like 600 people. They hit this is in 1609. They hit a hurricane right around Bermuda, and everybody survives except for two small ships, and that's a whole nother route of research that I'm doing as well, which was some pretty interesting stuff, but it's a rabbit hole. So 2 ships disappear forever. 6 ships make it to the 7, 8, 9, 6 ships make it pretty much right away to Jamestown to resupply. And during the hurricane, the largest of the ships crash lands on Bermuda purposely. They shipwreck themselves to avoid the storm, and about 100 people I believe it was about 100 people were on that ship, and they disembarked, live on Bermuda for a full year. While they're on Bermuda, they take apart the old ship, build 2 new ships, and by 1610 they set sail again, and they make it over to Jamestown. And once they get to Jamestown, one of the guys who was at Bermuda on the crash landing is a guy named William Strachey. William Strachey just happens to be one of those guys who was in Francis Bacon's literary society. He gets to Jamestown. He writes a full report of everything that happened for the year on Bermuda, and he sends it to Francis Bacon's new wife. And in 1611, William Shakespeare, or under the name William Shakespeare, a play is published called The Tempest, and it's all about a crash landing. I mean, there's even like 6 names that are used. 6 characters in the play have names that are like, if the guy's name was John, it would be Ron. I mean, they're that close. It's ridiculous. The play The Tempest is about the crash landing on Bermuda that was headed to Virginia, but it is 100%, when you break it down, it is an absolute first initiation into a mystery. It's kind of the crappiest of Shakespeare's plays, I think. And so you have one of Bacon's buddies writes the report of what happened in 1610, and in 1611, that is the last play that this Shakespeare guy ever writes, right? The weird thing is that it appears first 10, 15 years later in the 1623 first folio of Shakespeare, right? 36 plays, and the very last one that he wrote, and arguably kind of the weirdest and kind of off. It's like Shakespeare's Twin Peaks. It's very strange. It's first in the folio. So let's see if I've lost where I was going next, but I might not have. Okay, here we go. All right. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay, so 1623, the first folio goes out. Oh, that's right. So while I'm talking to Robert Frederick, this Bacon scholar, he's talking about the Tempest, and he drops it on me that it's an initiation. It's allegory. The entire Tempest, first play in the folio of Shakespeare, is an initiation allegory. And I start thinking back to my own personal Shakespeare knowledge, and I know that there's 36 plays, and I go, well, dang, if that's the first degree of Freemasonry, the Tempest, there's 36 plays in Shakespeare. And while he's like talking, I'm literally pulling up other windows and going through and looking, because I know that there's several plays of Shakespeare's that have 2, and one of them has 3 parts. So I was like, I wonder if I put the plays together that have more than one part into one play, which is what they were just published separately because they were very long plays and performed separately. If I mash those down, what number would I get? And of course I get 33 plays. So I spend the last 2 months picking through the plays as best that I can, and lining them up in the order they are in this book to the 33 degrees of Scottish Rite Freemasonry, which seems off because Scottish Rite Masonry doesn't come around until the 1700s. But if you actually look into the history, depending on how far you take it back, I know at least for me that in Edinburgh there was a lodge let's see here. So what's referred to as Proto-Scottish Rite Freemasonries, and the theory is that it existed between 1500 and 1600, that early. So just before the first Stuart king. So a guy named William Shaw, or there was something that came out called the William Shaw Statutes between 1598 and 1599. And it established a set of regulations for Scottish Masons that look more like mystical guild laws than operative rules. Shaw refers to masters of the lodge and wardens in the same way that they use master and warden in the speculative Masonry lodges. Now, there's an unusual wave of esoteric Hermetic Rosicrucian activity in Europe between 1580 and 1620, Bruno D. Flood Bacon, and the earliest known non-operative or symbolic Masons appear in Scotland before 1600. And we know that, I think it was 1598, King James I, who becomes the first Stuart king, was initiated into that Edinburgh Scottish lodge. So there is a precedent that Masonry was going on in at least Scotland for sure, much earlier. And I believe that through the Merovingian line and these different monarchies with these this divine right to rule kind of ethos, I believe that they were practicing these kind of ancient mystery schools in one way or another, all the way back to the Merovingian and probably much further. depending on when it was adopted from their
I
buddies.
got a question really quick about that, actually.
Yeah.
Because I know that the Merovingians play a part in like the Shakespeare thing, but is Francis Bacon supposed to be from like the Merovingian bloodline or something? Is that, or am I wrong?
It depends on how you look at that history, which is super murky. Francis Bacon was basically raised by Queen Elizabeth I. Queen Elizabeth so there's also speculation that Francis Bacon was the illegitimate son of Queen Elizabeth. So after Queen Elizabeth becomes the queen, in the about 6 months before Francis Bacon is born, to her Lord Keeper of the Seal, some people, it's on record that some folks went to see Queen Elizabeth at court and then came back, and subsequently a few weeks after they came back to their fiefdoms and whatever, they got their tongues cut out and they got hung and they got their heads cut off because there's a rumor that they were spreading around that I just went and saw the queen and I don't think she's a virgin queen anymore. This bitch looks pregnant, right? And so it's on record, these people who you know got murked because they were spreading this rumor about the infidelity of the queen. Well, Francis Bacon is born to I can't remember his dad's name, but he was the Lord Keeper of the Seal for Queen Elizabeth, like top advisor. And immediately upon his birth, he is moved into the court, the baby. He is educated by the crown, and then put through either Cambridge or Oxford, and then on to Gray's Inn to learn law, and then immediately becomes part of the court and starts taking on advisory roles and things like that with Queen Elizabeth. Now, Queen Elizabeth's mom was Anne Boleyn. Anne Boleyn was the chick that King Henry VIII stopped Catholicism in England for. So King Henry VIII was married to Catherine of, it always sounds like a Lord of the Rings. It's Spain, but Queen Catherine was King Henry VIII's wife. She couldn't give him any kids, so he wanted to divorce her. He went to the Pope and was like, Pope, can I please get a divorce? And the Pope said no, and that's where the big schism and the split in England comes in. And so King Henry VIII and the Bishop of, I guess, Canterbury create this Anglican Church of England thing. And the next chick is Anne Boleyn. Anne Boleyn, you follow her maternal bloodline back, she is Plantagenet. And the Plantagenet come from the maternal side of the Merovingians. So it goes Merovingian, and then on the maternal side of the Merovingian, as they die out, the Carolinians. So you're talking about the court of Charlemagne. The maternal side of the court of Charlemagne comes from the Merovingians, and then the maternal side of the court of Charlemagne creates the Plantagenet line, and then on up, and it moves right into the Bruces and the Stuarts, and then obviously
that's the Meghan Markle thing, right? Because she's from Robert the Bruce's line. So she's got like, they were like, oh, he found this really nice black girl and he's going rogue. No, he's not. Like, he's not going rogue. Like,
legitimately, Meghan Markle has a stronger claim to the throne. The Stuarts.
That's what I've said for years.
The Stuarts, the Stuarts had a stronger claim to the throne before Queen Elizabeth. So when he got the divorce from Catherine, Mary, Queen of Scots, who was the Queen of Scotland at the time, she had a better claim to the throne than any of King Henry VIII's children, because all King Henry VIII's children were, their mothers were not noble women. They were of no like kind of monarch bloodline. But King Henry VIII's brother, if I'm not mistaken, or his sister, Mary, Queen of Scots, is the daughter he's like the uncle to Mary Queen of Scots. So Mary Queen of Scots had a better claim to the throne, but of course they didn't let that happen. First they let Henry VIII's sickly little like young son, he dies, and then Bloody Mary becomes the queen, and she doesn't end up with an heir, and she dies, and then Queen Elizabeth, she's like last in line because I think Anne Boleyn was kind of the viewed by the monarchy as the skeeziest of all Henry's chicks. And so Elizabeth spent most of her life in the Tower of London, like in prison, because Bloody Mary was afraid they were going to depose her and put Elizabeth in. Anyway, so Elizabeth doesn't have a strong claim to the throne as her cousin over in Scotland. And Queen Elizabeth, when she gets on the throne, she's so sketched out that Mary Queen of Scots is going to take her out and take over the throne, that she finally they come to an agreement, and she's like, look, if you don't try to kill me and take my throne, when I die, since I'm the Virgin Queen, I'll name your son James as my heir, right? So they make that agreement, and then Queen Elizabeth has Mary Queen of Scots' head cut off anyway. But when Queen Elizabeth dies, that is when King James I becomes the king of England, and thus the first Stuart. And that brings in the Bruces and the Merovingian Plantagenet. That whole line all comes together with the Stuarts. And I forgot where I was at.
Oh, real quick, if you don't mind, then I'll say something you want to look. I can't remember even specifics. It might have been Michael Meyer or Michael Mayer, and I can't remember the other people. But there was probably going back a year and a half, 2 years ago. There was certain alchemists or occultists that me and Lisa had covered that were all somehow like showing up around King James, which I had like no idea. I never really didn't realize how powerful it was, and I was like, oh, this is way too many now to where it's coincidence. Like, come on.
So you definitely have him getting initiated into the that very early lodge in Scotland, and then he was surrounded by the same type of people that Queen Elizabeth was. I mean, she's John Dee's chick. I mean, John Dee was her like personal kind of spiritual advisor, and that is who most likely Francis Bacon was tutored. You imagine your mom is the queen, but she's not claiming you as her son, and then she's got this, the original 007 spying and talking to angel demons to tell her how to run the country, and then this little kid kicking around the court is getting, and there's like no letters or evidence that Francis Bacon had any contact or anything with John Dee, but it's so completely obvious by their interests and their education that he was probably his biggest mentor. There's one wood cutting that they found, and the people use it for all kinds of like podcasts, like thumbnails and whatnot, but it's an old wizened looking wizard guy who is John Dee holding like passing a lantern to a younger man, and that they're pretty sure that depicts John Dee and Francis Bacon. I think that it's official that the old guy is John Dee, and they don't know who the other guy is that he's passing the enlightenment on to, but it's him.
So what do you think about, like, I think Shakespeare could have been, you hinted at this, like a court of people or a council of people that, and Francis Bacon was on there, but they say, oh, well, Shakespeare wrote the Bible, King James Bible.
No,
but it would have been somebody or all of the members of the court, right? Or
yeah, so that's the funny thing about the King James Bible, and also remember too that in 1611 the Bible comes out, and that's the same year that the very last Shakespeare play comes out. So it's like off of one project and on to the next project, and that'll play in when I actually finally get into the meat of this stuff. It'll really play into this research, the Bible with Shakespeare. So it's kind of funny because as I understand it, people say a common myth is that Shakespeare wrote the Bible, But they say that because the Shakespeare guy, because he ran in the same circles, may have been a part of the group that historically we know that Francis Bacon was the head of, that wrote the King James Bible for King James. So like Francis Bacon was officially what we know of. He was the kind of head of the council that was putting together the King James Bible. And so people assume Shakespeare wrote the King James Bible because he was part of that group. But then when you say that Francis Bacon might probably wrote Shakespeare because he was part of that group, people are like, no, come on. That's, Stratfordians. They're like, then that can't be possible. Even though there's far more, evidence that Francis Bacon may have quite possibly have been the most brilliant person to ever walk the face of the planet. I mean, he absolutely.
I'm starting to gather that just
was.
based on doing some of my own research about him, and he keeps popping up and shit. And I'm like, who is this dude? He's like fucking obscure, kind of.
Is like
he's everywhere and nowhere. You know what I mean?
He's. I think I have a quote here. Somewhere. I can't remember what it was, but it was a really great Shakespeare and Bacon quote. But yeah, Francis Bacon, in his time, somebody had said that Francis Bacon, by the age of 12, had already read everything in print. He spoke like 4 or 5 languages by that age. By 15, he was at either Oxford or Cambridge. I can't remember which one, going to college. By 16, he quit because he was bored. And by maybe 14, he was there. By 15, he quit. And then by 16, he was back teaching. So he was teaching at one of those 2 prestigious schools when he was barely just a teenager, and then moves on to Gray's Inn, becomes a great lawyer, and then is in the court. Not only that, he was doing the same things that John Dee was, in that he had a big hand in Elizabeth's kind of spy network. He was writing tons of ciphers and mathematics and cryptology and doing it. I mean, he created the scientific method. He was absolutely brilliant. I mean, there's definitely evidence that he was a polymath, and he could have written plays and done impossible math work. But did that person just say they were bored? I don't know. I saw somebody
bored before 16.
Oh, okay. She threw me. I thought she was bored with me.
Oh, no.
Anyway, I should probably get into the actual, because I've been rambling for like an hour, and it's I haven't even gotten into it yet. So
all right, let's go.
All right. So the whole Tempest thing got me interested. I found the connection there with the 33 degrees of Freemasonry, and so I plotted them all out and mapped them all out. And I'm just gonna go. What I found was they were exact. Every single degree explains every single play, and every single play has elements of every single one of its corresponding degrees, and it's eerily so.
There's one thing I want to mention too. Like, there's times, this is really interesting that you're saying this. I would even wonder about some of these inner orders, because could those be other books or something? Because there's been times when me and the first, I think Lux was with him. We had covered, I think, Quetzalcoatl and a couple of inner orders. Masons, and they will mention Shakespeare sometimes.
They claim him. They claim him as their own. I mean, he becomes part of that lore like Hiram Abiff. I mean, I think we all know that there wasn't actually a guy named Hiram Abiff. But it explains some part of their story, and it's kind of the same as that Merovingian, Christ bloodline. Like, it imbues that monarchy with importance. And the more folks that they, my buddy is Daniel Duke, who is the great grandson of the real Jesse James. And I asked him if he was getting any. He's the guy that wrote Jesse James and the Lost Templar Treasure, which I know sounds crazy. That's why I bought the book, but it's insane. Jesse James was part of the Knights of the Golden Circle. He was a Freemason, and his maps that have been uncovered match up to all the Templar symbolism and whatnot. And I asked him, I was like, are you worried? You're, exposing some of this stuff. And he was like, no. He's like, they love me, man. They did a blurb for the back of my book and whatnot, because these guys added to their brand. It doesn't hurt them, and they can pick and choose and kind of explain to their adepts who was real and who wasn't, and who were using as allegory or symbolism. And anyway, so I mapped those 33 degrees to the 33 plays that started off as 36, but I combined the plays that have more than one part. And then that led me to mapping both the degrees and the plays onto another thing that I'll get to as I go through a few of these plays. And then that led me to another piece of esotericism that maps on to all of them. So this is 4 kind of streams of data that all come together. And stream 3 and 4 are stream 3 for sure. I don't think anybody, because I can't find it anywhere. Nobody's ever mentioned what I'll show you, which is like stream 3. Now, obviously, the Masons have talked about Shakespeare being one of their guys. I've even heard it said that Shakespeare wrote our bylaws. I think a Mason has actually said that to me. So that theory is out there. My point with this is to kind of show that the framework was already there before. Yeah, there's all kinds of great geometry in the Shakespeare First Folio. But my point is to kind of show that the framework for Masonry was there in the Shakespearean plays before the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. And so that's the line of succession, because I think a lot of people could just look at it and go, oh yeah, the degrees match up, because obviously, the Scottish Rite came after Shakespeare, and so they thought this was a cool book and they took the symbolism out of it. But I think they recognized the symbolism that was already there. Anyway, so I'm gonna go through the Tempest real quick first. Quick summary of the Tempest. Prospero, the rightful Duke of Milan and master of the magical arts, uses sorcery to shipwreck his usurping brother and others upon his island. Through carefully orchestrated illusions, he confronts betrayal, restores harmony, and ultimately chooses forgiveness over vengeance. In Masonry, the entered apprentice, that's the first degree, represents initiation, purification, and the awakening of latent potential. It symbolizes the beginning of the spiritual journey and moving from chaos into ordered understanding and entering the island of symbolic instruction. So in the play, Prospero functions as the initiator. He guides all the others on the island through ordeals, storms, illusions, tests of character, much like the candidate in Freemasonry is guided through symbolic storms. Ariel performs the role of spiritual messenger, while Caliban embodies the unrefined natural man the apprentice must overcome. The entire island becomes an allegorical lodge of transformation. So I read those two things together and go, okay, that's 1-for-1 Tempest to the first degree, right? So then I pull out my old trusty copy of Morals and Dogma, and I'm like, well, let me just dig through these and see what signs and symbols and things like that from each degree might map onto the plays as well, right? So first degree, the entered apprentice, the degree symbols there are a 24-inch gauge, which is a measurement of time, the common gavel for breaking away vices, the rough ashlar, which is just a rough stone, and the light, or the great light. So the way that's mirrored in the Tempest is Prospero's entire magical operation is timed to the minute in the play. The hour has now come, is a quote, mirroring the 24-inch gauge as the symbol of time management. The shipwrecked nobles, or the rough ashlars, broken down by trials, the island experience chips away their vices, just like the gavel. And then the final reconciliation is the perfect ashlar, the raw characters refined. So as I'm going through that, I don't know if I can pick this up and show you guys real quick. Another really strange, this book is batshit crazy. Can you see that? Do you see, this is the table of contents, right? Yeah. Do you see, just take a quick look at the numbers of the pages, and what you'll notice is like the Tempest starts at page 1, but then all the other page numbers are out of order. You can be on page 250, flip over 2 pages, and you're on page 45. And that's something that people have brought up about this. I mean, here's page 93. I go back a big chunk. 191.
It's on page
50, way back here. I'm back to 55. I mean, and I've always thought that meant something, but I'm not mathematically minded. So whatever codes that, you know, Petter Amundsen and the Oak Island boys are figuring out, like I don't have the wherewithal. But what I did notice was that the very last play in the Shakespearean First Folio starts on page 369, and it's only about 5 or 6 pages long, right? So that puts me around 375. And so I start looking around like, what from 1611, what was Bacon involved in that might match to that? Well, 369 is like a perfect number. I can't remember. I went through all that, but I try to stay away from the numerology as much as I can. But I start looking around, and what I find is that Proverbs in the Bible has exactly 375 Proverbs. So Solomon wrote Proverbs. We all know that Francis Bacon was obsessed with Solomon. The Masons are obsessed with Solomon. And I'm like, man, maybe this is a match. And since we have this whole table of random numbers, almost this random number generator, I was like, there's no way that these numbers could match up to the play with the corresponding proverb. And so when I say 375 proverbs, these proverbs are things like, let's see here. A wise son maketh a glad father, but a foolish son is the heaviness of his mother. They're like 2-line little pieces of wisdom that Solomon wrote down. And the crazy thing is that nobody in the history of the Bible has ever everybody talks about how amazing advice these proverbs are, but nobody once has ever gone and just pulled them out in order and just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nobody, all the way down to 375. So I had to open the Bible and go through 375 proverbs in order and write them down, right? And I'm glad I did, because and what you'll see with the way these map in the beginning degrees, just like the degrees are in Masonry, it's a little light. The symbolism fits, but it might be a little bit tangential, and a little fluffy and not real. There's not a whole lot of like weight on it. And then as we get further and further and further in, it becomes more exact and more perfectly matched up with everything, to the point where the proverb that matches up with Titus Andronicus. Titus Andronicus is a tragedy play by Shakespeare, and at one point somebody cuts the tongues out of his daughter, or the tongue out of, it's either 2 daughters, and anyway, somebody gets their tongue cut out, and the proverb that matches up. And remember, we're not just going in order 1 through 33 proverbs. We're going from Proverb 1 to Proverb 20 to Proverb 38 to Proverb 61, and they match up. Bang, 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 bang. And the proverb that matches up with Titus Andronicus literally talks about cutting someone's tongue out. So beyond that, so I find this stuff and I map out all these dang proverbs, and then I move on, because obviously the number 33 is popping up over and over and over and over and over again. And the other piece of this Bacon, Shakespeare, Mason kind of salad is always Kabbalah. You always hear, the Kabbalah is basically a basis for Masonry, and everything kind of distills in each degree, kind of distills back to a Kabbalistic principle. And I've asked Master Masons, I asked the worshipful master of a lodge, like, hey, what do you know about the Kabbalah? This is a 32nd degree Mason. He's like, I've never even heard of it. Now, I know the guy pretty well, and if he was, if he was bullshitting me, I feel like I'd have known it. But I've asked other people, and you can go online to forums and stuff like that, and you'll see Masons all day be like, nothing to do with Kabbalah, but it's absolutely 100% clear that it is. And if you read Morals and Dogma and anything by Albert Pike, the Kabbalah was Pike's, that was his preferred kind of esoteric kind of framework. So it is in there, specifically in Scottish Rite Freemasonry. So I start looking around into the Kabbalah.
Oh, real quick, I just want to say, I know for a fact that well, I mean, that's what they even admit it, but maybe it's not true. But the Astrum Argentum, even if you look up their initiative, I guess, degree system, they even show you how their degrees match the tree.
Yeah,
they kind of make it, or they kind of in explaining it, it's quite obvious.
Well, so does the what I found is, so does it match with the degrees, the 33 degrees of Freemasonry and the 33 plays of William Shakespeare. So I found this thing called the 32 Paths of Wisdom in Kabbalah. Yeah. It comes from the Book of Formation, and it describes the 32 Paths of Wisdom as, these are the 10 Sephirot. So 1 through 10 is the 10 Sephirot on the Tree of Life. And then below that is the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And so that gives you 32 paths. But Kabbalah always speaks of the 33rd path that cannot be named, the path beyond form corresponding to Keter or Ein Sof. It's heavily emphasized in Lurianic Kabbalah, Hermetic Kabbalah, which is of Bacon's day, 16th and 17th century Christian Kabbalists, and Rosicrucian manuscripts. So this particular kind of ladder of 33 pathways maps right onto the time and place that Francis Bacon was messing around in and working off of. So I've gone through, I'm not going to go through all 33 plays, but I do have some favorites. Trust me when I say that they all match up pretty great, but I'm going to jump. So we went through the Tempest a little bit. Let's do Much Ado About Nothing. That's the 6th degree. Much Ado About Nothing is the 6th play. It is the 6th degree of Scottish Rite Freemasonry is the Intimate Secretary. The summary of the play: Beatrice and Benedict engage in witty verbal combat while Claudio and Hero navigate betrayal and reconciliation. Love triumphs, but only after truth is brought to light. In Masonry, the degree centers on confidential service, accurate witnessing, and faithful transmission of truth. So the sexton in the play, is a character in the play, acts as a recorder. So literally, this is the intimate secretary in the
called the sexton.
The sexton, yeah.
Isn't that like a astronomical device as well?
I believe so. Yeah. Sextant, I think.
Oh
yeah. So they have a secretary and just so you know, there's not a lot of secretary parts in other Shakespearean plays, so it's interesting. He acts as recorder for Dogberry. He embodies the secretary role, literacy, truth keeping, and the ability to discern fact from falsehood. The central conflict, Hero's slander, dramatizes the dangers of false reports, a core lesson of the degree. So right there, the core lesson of the degree is mapped out right into the play there. And then from morals and dogma, the degree symbols, 2 clasped hands, curtains half drawn, triangular arrangement of secret letters, red and white, which stand for passion and purity. The way that mirrors in the play, the entire plot revolves around broken trust, rebuilding of confidence between characters, hero Claudio, Benedict, and Beatrice. Everything is overheard behind curtains, hedges, partial concealments, perfect symbol of the half-drawn veil, red and white. Obviously, this is all his comedies are also love triangles. So red and white, hero's innocence, stained by false accusation, red. Bam. And then we go to 6 on the Proverbs. Much ado. Yeah. That is Proverb 101 or Proverbs 4:18. The wisdom of the prudent is to understand his way, but the folly of the fool is deceit. The lines with the 6th degree, the intimate secretary, the degree stresses discernment, accurate record, truth versus deception. Accurate record, you're talking about that secretary there. The wisdom of the prudent is to understand his way, equals the secretary's duty. Folly is deceit. That's the degree's warning. Don Pedro and Leonardo equal prudence and understanding. Claudio is deceived. Benedict and Beatrice, truth disguised as wit. And Don John, folly is deceit incarnate. So the 6th degree is about the ability to tell the truth from falsehood, and the entire play's engine. And then you run over here to the Kabbalah, and that particular play lines up with number 6, the 6th pathway, which is Tiferet, which means beauty or harmony after conflict. So again, Tiferet equals the heart equals Benedict and Beatrice. Harmony restored through speech, misunderstanding, and reconciliation. So the other great thing about the Shakespeare plays mapping onto the degrees of Freemasonry is that they go the first, I believe it's 12 plays. Let me make sure. All right, I'll get to it. Okay. Oh, here we go. The first 14 plays in the Shakespeare folio are the comedies, and they are all light love triangles, comedic. Right at play number 15 is where the histories and tragedies start. In Freemasonry, the first 14 degrees are the ineffable degrees, a little bit lighter. And then in the 15th degree, that's right where the historical and religious degrees begin. And so also where the histories and tragedies begin in the first folio. So I'm going to jump to where are my stars at? Yeah, here we go. I'm going to jump to the 18th degree. I find this grouping of these degrees and plays really interesting. So the play that we're talking about is Henry V. We've jumped to the kind of knightly degrees, and we've jumped to the histories in the Shakespearean plays. The 18th degree is the Knight of the Rose Cross. The play is Henry V. It's interesting that also not only is this where the kind of knightly degrees start, but it's also interesting that the first place that like Rosicrucianism is mentioned within the degrees is also the start of the histories here. So Henry V follows King Henry's transformation from reckless prince to a responsible and inspiring monarch. The play centers on his leadership during the war with France, especially the Battle of Agincourt. Themes include honor, duty, legitimacy, and the burden of kingship, as well as the attempt to reconcile former vices with present virtue. In Masonry, the 18th degree, the Knight of the Rose Cross degree uses the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth to illustrate universal principles of life and morality. It emphasizes virtue over vice, tolerance over love, the reconciliation of opposites, the discovery of the true word or logos within oneself. It's a degree of inner transformation. In the play, Henry V can be read as a monarch undergoing rose cross transformation. As far as reconciliation of opposites, Henry is both pious and ruthless. He speaks eloquently of honor and unity. We few, we happy few. Remember that line. Yet he threatens Halfor and sanctions executions. He wrestles with tensions between mercy and necessity. The true word within is represented by Henry's transformation from Prince Hal to King Henry. Suggests a man has aligned his outward actions with an inner sense of calling and kingship, a discovery of his royal logos, tolerance and union by seeking to unite England and France, symbolized through his marriage to Catherine. Henry attempts to heal divisions and build a broader unity, an echo of the degree's call to transcend sectarianism and embrace a higher reconciliatory love. You jump to the signs and symbols of the 18th degree in Freemasonry. And again, this is really cool. So the 18th degree of Freemasonry is the Knight of the Rose Cross. The play is King Henry V. Henry V was the last king before the War of Roses. And his son was the King of England during the War of Roses. So the degree symbols are the rose cross, the pelican equals sacrifice, the eagle, which equals vision, the lamb and 7 seals, and red and white. And the way you find those in the play, Henry repeatedly casts himself as the sacrificial leader, bearing the sins of his army. His transformation from Hal is a rose cross resurrection, and Agincourt is framed as the red and white miracle. And then that proverb, this is where the proverbs start to get a little bit more on the nose even. 18. This is, again, 69 page. I'm sorry. Play starts on page 69. The proverb, the 69th proverb is, he that diligently seeketh good procureth favor, but he that seeketh mischief, it shall come unto him. Alignment with Henry V. Henry diligently seeks good, honor, unity, victory. The French are the traitors, seek mischief in return to destroy them. So it's almost a perfect alignment from virtue to favor to mischief to defeat. And then that mapping onto the Kabbalah.
Even on the keystone too for masonry to pillars.
Yeah. And then in Kabbalah 18, the path there is represented by the letter Peh, P-E-H, the mouth or speech. The great thing about, I love that in this play, do you remember it's in movies and things like that, the famous Shakespearean speech, once more unto the breach? It's like a famous rallying thing. The two most famous monologue speeches in Shakespearean plays are contained within Henry V, this one play. So it's the once more into the breach speech, and then the St. Crispin's Day speech. You look any of those up, they've been quoted a million times in a million movies about war and whatnot. And specifically, the path in the Kabbalah on that 33 rung ladder of this Kabbalistic system means mouth or speech. Obviously, speech is power of the word and the logos thing. 19th degree is the degree. 19th degree is the Grand Pontiff. The play that corresponds is Henry VI. Play summary across the Henry VI trilogy, England's fortunes decline abroad and at home. Part 1 shows the loss of France and the rise of Joan of Arc and Talbot. Part 2 depicts the escalating factionalism and civil unrest. Part 3 plunges fully into the Wars of the Roses with brutal battles between Lancaster and York, culminating in the Shattered Realm and the rise of Richard III. Themes include collapse of legitimate authority, the cost of war, the legacy of nobility, and heroism. In Masonry, the Grand Pontiff degree stresses the continuity and influence of the past on the present future. The play is all things that result from past deeds. The struggle between light and darkness, good and evil, the idea that good ultimately triumphs, Mason's responsibility to uplift future generations and to think beyond his own era. So in the play, moral ambiguity and struggle, Henry VI is personally devout and gentle, but politically weak, while figures like Margaret and York display ruthless ambition. The past shaping the future, the wars, betrayals, misjudgments in Henry VI plant the seeds for Richard III, who is the next play and the next example. The entire are echoes of the 19th degree insistence that the past is never dead. It is the foundation of that will be built, good or ill. Let's see here. You've got this is cool. In the 19th degree symbols and signs, you got a triple cross, the meter, the censer, and the crown of stars. The play revolves around corrupted spiritual authority, contested legitimacy, and priestly overtones. The triple cross tensions appear in the War of the Roses. There are 3 overlapping factions in that particular historic conflict. So you got those 3 crosses representing the 3 parties of the War of the Roses. And then Henry VI is the metered king. He's pious but ineffective. Real quick, that proverb, righteousness keepeth him that is upright in the way, but wickedness overthroweth the sinner. That one's pretty self-explanatory. The Proverbs overthrow is literally the War of the Roses. 19, we've got Resh, which means head, or leadership. Collapse of leadership, chaos of many heads. And here we go. And again, the more you go through these, the more on the nose they get. The 20th degree is the master of the symbolic lodge. The play that corresponds is Richard III. Play summary: Richard of Gloucester schemes, lies, murders his way to the throne. His manipulation of appearances, oaths, and loyalty creates a reign of terror that ultimately collapses, and he is defeated by Henry Tudor, Henry VII. Ruthless ambition, conscience, legitimacy, and divine justice. In Masonry, the degree focuses on the responsibilities of the master to embody and teach truth, justice, and tolerance as central virtues of leadership, restoring Masonry and symbolically any institution to its original purity. It's interesting because it ends with a Tudor. The end of this play, Henry VII, the father of Henry VIII, who ends up being Elizabeth's father, takes over. So this is where it drops from Richard III, and this is exactly where that Merovingian line kicks back in. And it's where Bacon, at the end of this play, what's coming next is Bacon, Elizabeth, and all that whatnot. You've got keys and golden circles that all tie into the play. Those are the signs. The proverb, the beginning strife is as when one letteth out water, therefore leave off contention before it be meddled with. Warns against tyranny, conflict, and moral decay, all the things that got Richard III deposed and the Tudors in there. Play begins with strife unleashed by Richard. The War of the Roses let out the water that drowns the kingdom. Richard is the archetype of the degree's warning, unchecked strife, catastrophic collapse. Let's see here.
Use strife a lot. Love and strife.
Yeah. So that Hebrew letter is Tav, or the seal, or completion. Henry VII. Let's see here. Henry VII was the son of Edward III, who was a Plantagenet. His wife, Elizabeth of York was a Plantagenet. So that's where the true divine right, like I was saying, begins again. And I will skip on to the 21st degree. This one's kind of interesting. I'll just go through key things because I know this is a lot of me just reading. So the 21st degree is the Noahite or Prussian knight. And the play there is Henry VIII. So we're now on to Queen Elizabeth I's dad. Noahite is a non-Jew who follows the 7 Noahide laws. So it's a non-Jew who follows the 7 like kind of Jewish laws. And it's also embodied. Those 7 laws are embodied in the lower Sephirot of the Kabbalistic tree of life. Let's see here. So Henry VIII portrays the political and personal intrigues of Henry's reign, especially his marriage to Anne Boleyn, descendant of Edward I, Plantagenet. Includes ambition, religious and political change, the personal costs of royal decisions. Let's see here. Arrogance and humility, courtesy and dignity. What are we on? Number 21. I mean, I can keep going through these things, but I love to find some of these proverbs that are incredible.
I was wondering, Ernie, this is amazing. A series of correspondences. I was wondering if you'll share the 33 somewhere online, maybe not the entirety, but just the correspondences, maybe just in bullet points.
That was kind of my plan to get done before here and be able to like throw them up instead of me just rambling.
Well, not necessarily for us, but I just mean for you and other folks that might be interested in this, because you really nailed some interesting things, I think, here.
Yeah, and it's when I'm not rambling and you're looking at this and the words side by side, it's a little more incredible than my
and may I say I see the incredibleness of it, because I'm sure other people do too, but one thing that this all kind of weaves together, at least in my humble opinion, there's the Masonry, there's the King James Bible, and there's the Shakespeare stories as you're bringing together these, and these are all, as you pointed out, foundational to our culture today. Shakespeare still is so influential to people's mind states, we don't even realize it. And it all makes me think, because of Dee and Bacon and their incredibleness and all the weird hidden aspects that they encoded with everything and put forth all these sometimes wonderful lessons, really. But it makes me think about, in the Republic, there is an aspect of the dialogues where I forget who is talking, forgive me, but they're talking about the ideal nation or city state. And they are talking about how there would have to be a vanguard and so on. And there would have to be a mythos. There would have to be these stories. And there would have to be also this religion. And it's fascinating that this 3 streams, and maybe more even, but the Masonry, Shakespeare, and King James Bible come together right at the same time, where there's this whole new world. And in one sense, maybe it was just Virginia that they were trying to make this their little city state, in a sense, as you alluded to in the beginning, and more broadly the colonies and the new world at large. But it just makes me think that they really were trying to do what was put forth in the Republic, and you're finding this stream that really kind of hits on it.
And then later echoed in Francis Bacon's short story, The New Atlantis. I mean, I think that the New Atlantis has become almost old hat in conspiracy circles, because it's just the same old points have been brought up for decades about the New Atlantis, but it really is what this country ended up being. And if you really look at this, it really truly reads like the Bacons or these Merovingians, this idea for this republic, because they kept trying it. I mean, the Merovingians start in one area and they move all over Europe. They move into Scotland. They move into, throughout the connected bloodlines. They move everywhere, and they change things a little bit, even down to Henry VIII splitting away from the Roman Catholic Empire, right? And then the Anglican Church ends up being the same kind of oppressive force that the Holy Roman Empire was in England, to the Catholics who end up being in England. They oppress them the same way the Catholics were oppressing this upstart kind of Protestantism. And then these Puritans and Calvinists come over to the New World, and so it feels like they're just jumping out of these places that are a little once their Enlightenment ideals get like kind of exposed for not being in line with the church or culture at the time, it's like the Templars who factor into this as well. Once they become too powerful and maybe their ideas are a little bit too enlightened, all of a sudden the Pope and the French king want them gone. And where do they go? They go to Scotland and hang out with the precursor to the Bruce clan, and help the Bruce clan win the independence of Scotland from England, who at the time was Catholic. And Scotland at that time gets excommunicated. Their bishops get excommunicated from the Catholic Church. So actually, when Henry VIII, just a short time later, splits from the Catholic Church, Scotland was like, we've been split for a while. But I don't need to go through it, like, any more questions, but like, this is kind of
I had another question, and I would ask you to do one more, because I'm maybe a plain Jane of the Shakespearean world. I like Macbeth, and I also think one of the famous
that's a good one too. I'm still in the 20s here. Let me.
I was wondering, Hamlet. What is the number of Macbeth, and could you break that one down?
Yeah. And Romeo and Juliet, it's a really good one too. Timon of Athens, Julius Caesar, Hamlet, Macbeth. Macbeth is 28, so it's a 28th degree, Knight of the Sun or the Prince Adept. This is where they get really cool too, man. All right, so the play summary: spurred by a prophecy that his wife's urging, Macbeth murders King Duncan and seizes the Scottish throne. Haunted by guilt and driven by paranoia, he commits further atrocities until he's overthrown and killed. Themes: ambition, prophecy, moral corruption, and the overturning of natural order. In Masonry, the 28th degree Knight of the Sun or Prince Adept involves universalism and tolerance, deep esoteric and symbolic study of alchemy, Kabbalah, and cosmology, the pursuit of inner illumination, the sun within, duties of reflection, work, prayer, hope, and teaching hidden truths. So the way that's represented in the play, obviously the occult and esoteric themes, and that's the whole boil, whatever, and toil, the witch scene. Witches, visions, prophetic apparitions saturate Macbeth, making it Shakespeare's most overtly occult tragedy, or other than A Midsummer Night's Dream, I think it's the most overtly occult play that he has. This aligns with the 28th degree's fascination with the unseen and the symbolic. Perverted quest for secret knowledge, Macbeth, like a twisted adept, seeks advancement by violent shortcuts rather than genuine enlightenment, similar to those who in Masonic legends seek the master's secrets through murder, the Hiram Abiff story. Also, the thing you'll notice too in this mapping is that, again, those first degrees, it's a little less weight on them. They're a little less heavy, but you also notice in the first degrees that they are allegory for how you should be. And then once you get to the tragedies that switch at the same time the degrees change, they all become tales of like warning. All the plays are, don't do this, don't be like this. You know what I mean? So when does
that start? If you don't
so the first 14 degrees are the comedies. The first 14 plays, I'm sorry, the first 14 plays are the comedies. The first 14 degrees are the ineffable degrees. And then it switches to the chivalric and religious degrees after that. And once you get to the chivalric and religious degrees, that's when you start getting these cautionary, all the plays are like cautionary. Don't be like Macbeth. Don't be like Romeo and Juliet. Don't be like Richard III and whatnot. But within the, let me see, that's number 28. So if we go to morals and dogma, the signs and symbols of the degree listed are the sun, the zodiac wheel, the 7 rays, and esoteric hermetic signs. And Macbeth attempts to control fate itself, sort of brushing up against the zodiac. The witches invoke hermetic and planetary forces, light versus darkness, which is the sun imagery, which matches to the symbols in that degree, and its central tension. That proverb, if I'm not mistaken, is a good one too. Let's see here. Wealth gotten, yeah, this is perfect. Wealth gotten by vanity shall be diminished, but he that gathered by labor shall increase. He literally kills the king and takes over his kingdom. So vanity decline, true labor increase. Macbeth's kingship equals vanity seized unlawfully. Macbeth gains a crown by vanity, murder, and prophecy. His reign diminishes instantly, just like the proverb says. Malcolm and Macduff represent lawful labor, a flawless symbolic match. The proverb's warning is Macbeth's whole arc. And then
that's amazing. That correspondence is so direct.
Yeah. And it gets ridiculous. Here we go. The path in the 33 pathways of the Kabbalah is Nun, which is death and continuity. Death pursues the wicked. Death, fate, cycles, darkness, sorcery. That's what's encompassed in that. Let's go back one because this one's really cool too. Am I right?
One thing I do want to say, I just want to add, like, I know somebody had asked, like, at the beginning of the show about rituals being like plays or anything, and I was like, yeah, I think, kind of they are from my experience. If you can write them out like that.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. But even from my experience with the OTO, thinking about taking, some of the initiation, well, any of the ones I did, they were fucking long and drawn out. Like,
yeah,
multiple people there. You could be answering and saying stuff to multiple people around you. It's just like,
yeah. All the Masonic rites are, yeah.
They all give you a context of like kind of like where you are and what's going on, or you can figure it out from what people say.
Yeah. It's it's kind of been clear to me in the back of my head that this could be the case, but I never thought it would, stack up the way that it did. This one here, 24 is Titus Andronicus. This is the one that I was talking about, with the tongue being cut out. Plot summary: Roman general Titus Andronicus returns victorious and sacrifices a Goth princess, sparking a revenge spiral between his family and Tamora, queen of the Goths. The play is famously violent and depicts mutilation, rape, and murder as revenge escalates without limit. The degree, Prince of the Tabernacle, number 24, focuses on divine omnipresence, the immortality of the soul, serving God, country, and brethren, faith in divine justice, and spiritual reward. Apparent Absence of the divine justice. Characters shoot arrows with pleas to the gods, but no visible divine intervention arrives. Revenge instead of faith. Let's see here. The signs altar, which is crazy. He sacrifices in the play. He sacrifices a goth princess on an altar. The symbols of that particular degree in Freemasonry, the very first one is an altar, cherubim, flaming sword, veil of sanctuary. Titus is the grim priest of vengeance, the killing of Lavinia. They have this big feast of revenge, altar sacrifices, flaming sword symbolizing fits the brutality. See what that proverb is. Proverb is gonna be, the mouth of the just bringeth forth wisdom, but the froward tongue shall be cut out. The degree teaches that divine order exists even when unseen. The froward tongue describes the Goths, Saturnius, Tamora, and Aaron. Rome's mouth of the just, mutilated. Tongues literally become symbols in Lavinia's mutilation. That's his daughter. They cut her tongue out. Proverbs imagery manifests literally in the play. Speech, mutilation, justice, and divine silence. And then I'll do Romeo and Juliet because that one's pretty wild too. If I can find it real quick. No, you know what? Antony and Cleopatra, that's the 32nd degree. So that is the highest degree in Scottish Rite Freemasonry other than the 33rd degree, which you can only be invited to. It's an honorary degree. So 32nd degree, Master of the Royal Secret. And that's Antony and Cleopatra. Play summary. Mark Antony, one of the three rulers of Rome, is torn between his duty to Rome and his love for Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt. Political tensions with Octavius Caesar escalate into war. Antony and Cleopatra's choices lead to defeat and their suicides. The themes are love, duty, East versus West, public versus private identity, and the nature of greatness. You've got in Masonry, the royal secret of equilibrium, the balance of opposing forces, justice versus mercy, reason versus passion, spirit versus matter, harmony between heavenly and earthly duties, understanding the true sovereignty is inner mastery and not just external. Literally, the East and the West as opposites, Rome and Egypt, love and duty, Antony's downfall as a Roman who chooses love over duty to his country, transfiguration and death. In the final scenes, Cleopatra reimagines Antony and herself in an almost mythic, cosmic terms. Let's see, that's 32. So the signs and symbols are really interesting in this one. You've got a skull, a black dagger, a Teutonic cross. Oh wait, no, that's not. I'm on the wrong one. Here it is: a double-headed eagle, a globe, a crown, black and white reconciliation. Literally, Antony and Cleopatra are. This just kind of hit me. The black and white reconciliation. You literally have a white Roman guy, and you've got this Egyptian princess. Antony and Cleopatra are literally two heads on one imperial body. And think about the very first symbol in this degree of Freemasonry is a two-headed eagle. Their fates turn on control of the globe. The double eagle symbol of unity and duality fits them both perfectly. What's that? 32. You've got proverb: the rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is the servant to the lender. Antony borrows Caesar's political stability, becomes servant to Rome. Cleopatra borrows Antony's power, becomes servant to passion. Rome rules the poor. The proverb reflects psychological, political, and karmic debts at the heart of the play. Yeah. And then here we go. The cough is the Kabbalistic path, holiness, or back of the head, the unseen motives, hidden passion, rule destiny. Othello's a really crazy one too. That degree and play are all about judging. I'll just read it. I got it right here. I'll do one more and then I'll shut my mouth. Let's see here. Yeah, 31st degree is the Inspector Inquisitor. Othello, the plot summary. Othello, a Moorish general in Venetian service, secretly marries Desdemona. His ensign, Iago, driven by envy and malice, manipulates events to convince Othello that Desdemona is unfaithful. Consumed by jealousy, Othello kills Desdemona and then himself when the truth is revealed. Trust, jealousy, race, manipulation, and the tragedy of misjudgment. In Masonry, the Inspector Inquisitor. This degree concerns moral self-judgment and inner tribunal of conscience, the duty to investigate motives with fairness and impartiality. He murks his wife because some dude told him some rumors about her banging somebody else. The danger of prejudice. I mean, literally, Othello is the only like, hey, here's a black guy and a white woman play. I mean, that was unheard of for that time, but for then the Masonic degree to literally deal in danger of prejudice, rash judgment, and blind credulity, and the need to balance justice with mercy. That one's pretty mind-blowing. The proverb is
that's always been one of my favorite plays.
It's great. I've seen that 2 or 3 times, and it's always one of the best. Whoso keepeth his mouth and his tongue keepeth his soul from troubles. The degree warns against deception and manipulation, and the control of speech is a core lesson of that degree. Matches perfectly with the proverb. Alignment with the play, Iago, the unkept tongue that causes ruin. So literally within the proverb, it talks about talking crap and screwing stuff up. Othello fails to guard his mind or his speech. Desdemona's innocence is destroyed by false words. The proverb literally predicts the tragedy. The tongue destroys the soul. And let's see here. Yeah, Othello, that is going to be Zadi, or the righteous one. And the whole play is righteousness corrupted by deception. The Inspector Inquisitor. Also, Othello becomes the Inspector Inquisitor of his wife, judge, jury, and executioner. So that one, I forgot about that. Othello lines up maybe more perfectly than any of them. Macbeth, Hamlet, and it literally goes like that as you go down. And then also the 33rd degree, which is like this unknown degree. You've got the very last play in the Shakespeare folio, Cymbeline, which is a play that a lot of people say, yeah, whoever wrote it, they wrote all these, but maybe not this one. It seems Cymbeline seems like off from the rest of them. It's the 33rd degree. It's on page 369. There's a correlation between 33 and 369. I'm sure this is just notes. This is more that I've typed out since I was in high school, for God's sakes. There's probably a book in this kind of mapping these things together, but there's tons more there, I'm pretty sure.
I wonder if it has anything to do with like the keys of Solomon.
Well, Solomon wrote,
Solomon
wrote Proverbs, and most of a lot of Shakespeare's works deal with the Middle Ages, and I believe that's when Templars are coming back and people are coming back from the Crusades in the Holy Land. I think that's really when Europe got saturated with actual texts from those Middle Eastern occult practices and whatnot. That's when all the grimoires show up. Now, they don't have anything older than the Middle Ages that is publicly known about, but all this esoteric wisdom from the East pops up in the Middle Ages and starts being practiced like in earnest. And it just so happens that coincides with the end of the Crusades and the end of the Templars. So yeah. Any questions? Any more?
Well, fascinating stuff. I just think the misordered numbers are definitely presenting something. With what I've seen, the hints as far as they left behind in relation to geometry and numerology kind of are what led people to go, wait, Shakespeare is not real. It was this guy.
Yeah.
It was these guys. So I'm sure, I would bet anyway, that those page numbers are communicating something. And I wonder maybe if it's as simple as possibly with the Fibonacci sequence. Maybe
I went through that. It's not.
You looked at that.
It's close. It's actually close. Like the Fibonacci
well,
sequence
I was thinking
off by like a number here or there. It's weird.
Oh, okay, interesting. I was wondering, if they were each kind of their own little cipher related to something too that come together.
Well, and so
very interesting. Anyway,
I have a theory, and again, I'm not mathematically minded to take it all the way, and I'd like to find somebody who could work with me. And I haven't found where anybody's ever tried to do it, but in the book The New Atlantis by Francis Bacon, it's almost unreadable because the amount of numbers that are listed in it. Like it's like all numbers. It's like there were 8 men and they were on 2 boats and they rowed out to us and they stayed 500 feet away and they asked us how many were on the boat and we told them 50, and they put our sick in 2 rooms and they put us in 17 rooms. And it's almost unreadable because of it.
That's exactly how it is. It's like exhausting. And it's like, what the fuck is this supposed to mean?
So I went through that book and I recorded every number in order and ran it through an AI program just to see if there was anything there. And and I ran it through like 3 different AI programs, and each one said, yes, there's something here. The markers for a code are here. And then when I plugged in, hey, what about like Baconian code? Because he had specific ciphers, like the Baconian cipher that he created himself. And then when I did that, all of them were like, well, yeah, you have to do this. And then they want to run all these. It just goes beyond my capability, but there's something in that.
Yeah, right.
There's no way. There's even like in the first paragraph, the words patience and deliverance. Now, this is a book about Christians who are lost at sea and just happen to bump into an island that nobody ever knew of that's filled with other Christians that save their lives. And the words patience and deliverance are used on like the first page and never used again in the rest of the book, which those are 2, like I looked up the odds of that, and it's pretty astronomical considering like the speech of the time. But the 2 ships, remember I told you that when they crash landed on Bermuda, they took apart the old ship and built 2 ships, and they named those 2 ships the Patience and the Deliverance. And the New Atlantis came out in 1626. So you've got the Tempest being written in 1610, the King James Bible in 1611, 1623 is the first folio, and then 1626 is, I believe, when Bacon dies, and the New Atlantis is published posthumously. Yeah. So I think there's something in there, and I think that that particular book connects as well. And one of those ships that disappeared just happened to have 50 people on it, which is the exact number of the people in the New Atlantis on the ship that were lost at sea. So it's interesting too. And if you look back, the captain of that particular ship that went missing forever was a guy named Matthew Fitch. But if you look back, if you're a nerd like me and you have the complete works of John Smith, Matthew Fitch was one of the original mariners who came over in 1607, and in July of 1607 he was killed by a native, and then in 1609 he's all of a sudden the captain of the ship The Ketch in the supply mission that goes missing forever, that has 50 people on it. And then Bacon's New Atlantis comes out with a book about 50 people lost at sea on a ship. And a dead guy was supposedly the captain of, yeah, it's weird. And they specifically say in the history that the captain of that particular ship that went missing, The Ketch, was the mariner Matthew Fitch, who was on the original 1607 mission. But right clearly in John Smith's works, he talks about going out on a hunting expedition in the woods around Jamestown, and he gets Matthew Fitch gets mortally wounded by an arrow from a native. There's all kinds of weird crap in Virginia and Jamestown, Bacon, and stuff like that. So go on forever.
That was weird. All sorts of like wonders of why.
Yeah.
Faked death, or didn't. Yeah, what's the point of like? I don't know. Was there any questions that you guys wanted to ask, or anything that you wanted to bring up? I think that was pretty. That was a lot of shit, dude. You really got to look at this Shakespeare stuff,
dude. I'm telling you, it's old hat. I feel like the Bacon Shakespeare Mason thing is almost been beat to death, to where like even us conspiracy folk are like, oh, this again. But the more it all trickles back, I really do think Bacon and Masonry is that connective tissue. As much as we want to look at like the Masons now as these like fish fry community like leader guys, there is a nugget in that system that I really think is responsible for the stewardship of the kind of Bacon ideal and the New Atlantis plan.
In the bloodlines too. It's just so weird.
I mean, you can't keep those bloodlines going and the knowledge of them known publicly. You have to do it within a system like this, and that's the perfect system for the monarchy used to be one thing, but again, that writing was on the wall. Monarchies were falling. Thank you.
Thank you very much, man.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, that was a lot of stuff. You got me wondering about the OTO, but they have different number of degrees.
But I mean, doesn't it? I mean, wasn't the OTO? I mean, influenced?
See, that's the thing too. Yeah. It was originally more degrees, and when Crowley took it over, he knocked out a fuck ton of them, and also made it based on the Book of the Law.
And Crowley went to Mexico.
Like some of them, I do think what's going on in the initiations, still follow.
Yeah,
to an extent, some.
And Crowley was a 33rd degree Mason out of Mexico. He went down to Mexico and studied Masonry. I mean, he was pretty into it. But I mean, he kind of did that with everything. He kind of had this pattern of joining an order and then causing chaos and then being like, peace, I'm out. Like starting over again with another one. But yeah.
All right. Before we wrap it up, I'll let everybody plug their stuff again. Julia, want to remind everybody where they can find all your amazing stuff?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This one was really interesting. I knew it would be. Cosmic Peach podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. I got some cool Menendez Brothers stuff up right now that you can check out. But yeah, thanks for having me, and loved the conversation.
Yeah, so did I. Actually, I got stuck in so many thoughts. I was just like, fuck. But like, it was all like nothing. I don't know. I didn't want to go off on tangents.
That's what happens every time I'm at work listening to the Occult Rejects.
I was even like,
I get hearing you guys, and I'm like, oh, dude, I gotta. And then I find another path that I'm like dying down for like 3 days.
You said something like about War of the Roses like 30 minutes ago, and I was like, kept on like thinking about something. So, yeah. Ethan Indigo, please, sir, let everybody know where they can find all your amazing work.
Ernie,
Your book.
Yeah, no, Nick, Julia, you guys rock. Ernie, thank you so much. That was really interesting. I never looked at it that way. Great correspondence and lessons in that. I can't wait to look at it more, honestly. Ethan Indigo Smith online, doing a podcast too with Headless and Ricardo on Sundays, Sunday Trialogues. And I have a bunch of books available and writing coming out frequently anyway. So, and I appreciate everyone in the chat too. Thanks, Nick, everyone.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you. And Ernie, please let everybody know where they can find all your stuff.
Yep. Virginia is for Conspiracy Lovers podcasts, everywhere podcasts are. And then we're over there on in YouTube. I think I forgot to say we do have a YouTube page, and a lot of my personal research is visual, and so I throw up maps and diagrams and ley lines and stuff like that. So it's worth going to. We took about 2 months off, but we're about to start hitting it pretty hard again. So Virginia is for conspiracy lovers. Anywhere you can find weirdos like me.
Listen, thank you for coming on again. That stuff was wild. And even people listen again. I do say this a lot. The people, if you're catching the replay, check the chat. The people in the chat had a lot of stuff to add too. Got stuck on that too a couple of times. But again, Julia, I appreciate you coming on. It's always nice to have you here. For real, it's great to see you. And Ethan, appreciate it as well. Both you guys are on the same time zone. So yeah, I appreciate you guys dealing with this as well. And Ernie, for real, it's always a pleasure to have you on. You're always welcome on. Anytime you got a topic, you can always hit me up. Hell yeah. No, it's always some wild shit.
I got another one coming. I think Thomas Jefferson was a murderer. So
okay. All right.
Tease you with that. I'm pretty sure he killed his mentor, the guy that made the booby flag. So that he could keep slavery in existence. That should be incendiary.
All right. No, I look forward to that. That's the end of this one. And again, thank you everybody in the chat. I appreciate that. And until the next one, everybody be well.
Thank you. Bye-bye.